I have just been given permission to record. Thanks to that, Bill.
You may drive us to the shop, Jeeves.
I have been invited, in fact, to begin recording.
Ah, by invitation. I see what you
By
did there.
invitation. By invitation, what do we invite into our lives?
Do you think we choose what we invite into our lives, or do you think that's sort of just the way society works?
Well, I don't know. We could hit the ground running with this. One might ask, is an invitation actually a command? Is it
Mm.
loaded up with instruction, or
It
is it?
certainly has baggage if you say no.
Mm. And think of all the times that you may have been invited somewhere and you have not wanted to accept the invitation, what that feels like. And likewise, I mean, we could look at this in all different kinds of ways. Even the word invitation itself is quite tricksy. We could say invitation might mean opportunity on one hand.
Sure.
Um, it could mean being beholden.
Have you ever said no to a wedding invitation
Yes.
that you could have gone to, but you just didn't want to?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, have you?
Yes. An invitation can be an obligation.
Hmm. Yes, an excellent word, I think, obligation for this.
Yeah.
It sets up the obligation. And that in itself makes me wonder if there's also a kind of transaction going on, an invitation.
You come to mine, I'll come to yours.
Hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, what do you invite into your life?
Well, can I just make one more comment and just say that I also think there's huge cultural stuff going on with that. I mean, there are some cultures around the world where if you get invited and you say no, that's a, where in America it's like, oh, well, we just won't invite Sandy again to the dinner party because she said no 3 times in a row. But if you say no to a wedding and somebody in South Asia or something like that, that could be a huge, faux pas.
Well, I
It's
think
interesting.
actually most places it's a huge faux pas to say no to.
Yeah, but you could make an excuse here.
Mm.
Say, oh, I'm sorry, it's my mother's birthday weekend. I can't make it.
But doesn't it reveal what we are bound to?
Sure.
And doesn't it reveal where our prejudices are?
Yeah. But I also have a general belief that if somebody asks you to show up to something, they mean it and you should try to show up.
Sure, but again, that element of command might mean that it rankles. The invitation itself seems hostile.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
invitation can be full of violence, can't it? It might not be an invitation of kindness. In fact, I don't think kindness and invitation go together at all.
That's funny though, because if you aren't invited to your best friend's wedding, you would probably be miffed by that as well.
Sure, I mean, I've just spoken very recently to an old friend about a feeling of being left out and left behind from a wider group of friends that I had when I was at school, um, and have in fact never been invited by the wider group of girls or
Why
women
did they
as we
cut you
now
off?
are.
Did you ever find out?
I suspect because I wasn't particularly interested and I was not maybe particularly interesting to them.
Yeah.
And I moved away, but then lots of us moved away.
Hmm.
And I've reflected many times on what it's felt like to not be invited.
Sure.
And I know how it feels. Although I have to say, on the other hand, I am often invited to things as you are. I don't feel like I lack invitation. I just sometimes have regretted the invitations I've known have existed, yet I have not been given.
Yeah, sure. But do we think we think too much about all that stuff?
No, because I think there is lots of stuff in it. As you said, there's culture, our predetermined conditions, our social currency is in that, isn't it? And
Sure.
also the index linked to our identity, how we are perceived, how we think we're perceived, how we might perceive ourselves. We're bartering with ourselves all the time, I think, about how valuable we are.
Well, I do believe, I mean, there is some reality in I'm a popular person to get invited to the parties or to the whatever it is, therefore I have a higher social standing. I mean, you know, there is some reality to that, whether or not you buy in or care about it.
Hmm. Well, I have known it to smart a little, not to be invited.
Sure, of course.
And I've also known the feeling of knowing I'm not inviting someone to something that I have or I'm doing,
Yeah.
and the enormous power that that can create the sense of.
Do you like that feeling of power?
I suspect I did when I was a bit younger. And I think when I think back to school, I think when I think, but when I am looking back at school, when I was probably in my teens, 14, 15, and there would be a house party, and I knew that I could dictate who would be allowed in at the buzzer downstairs to my mum's
Because
apartment.
you were cool.
um, yeah, I think I wielded that power gracelessly at
Yeah.
times.
Did you know that at the time?
Yes, I did, and I wasn't stupid, but it did feel delicious.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't enjoy that.
Mm. Anyway, also, the idea of invitation. This monk painting Love and Pain is otherwise known as vampire. And I thought, the vampire can only suck your blood if you invite
If
him
you
in.
invite it, if you, yeah, you got to let him in.
And how often do we do that in our lives, Bill?
Well, I don't know. You emailed me and I wrote you back. So, that's,
Well, there has not yet been a blood-sucking frenzy, so I think you're okay.
yeah, but, we have an ocean to protect me.
Mm.
Um, yeah, there is a strange, do you think sometimes we invite pain into our lives even though we know it's painful?
Yes. In the same way that I think we sometimes invite chaos and disorder, and then we have this kind of gripe about it later. Or,
Right, right.
this is why I'm leading with the question, what do we invite into our lives? I mean, are we conscious of what is loaded up in the
You would think that,
invitation we make?
sure, and you would think that we would invite just positive and good things, but I think sometimes there's like a little bit of a screw it streak, and then we invite bad things into our lives. I mean, we've
Mhm.
all had bad relationships. We've all, had bad lovers. We've all had, people friends who were jerks that, we thought they were cool. So I mean, whatever it is, right?
Mm.
We, all of these things
I mean, this
invite,
painting
almost like
is,
inviting disappointment.
yes, I think we do that all the time.
Yeah.
This painting, there's 6 versions of this. I mean, Monk actually painted this composition later anyway with the title Vampire in the Forest and I think another vampire. But he made 6 versions of this Love and Pain, and it was his friend who was an art critic who called it Vampire. But anyway, Love and Pain itself, as you say, we've all had bad relationships. We must
Mm.
know what we're getting ourselves into, don't we?
Yeah. I
Lots of
think
people would rally against that. No, I did not know that person
no,
was such an
yeah,
arsehole.
you find out, oh, this guy after 5 years started, being really abusive. It's like he wasn't abusive for the first 5 years at all. You didn't have any inkling of that. I think that in some people though, it's like they want the excitement. They want the drama. You know, I, it's, I have a friend who is dating this woman and she just seems kind of terrible. And it's like, well, she's terrible, so why don't you move off with it? I think there's a little bit of self-flagellation involved.
Mm,
Where's this painting, by the way? Do you know where this one is?
yeah, this one's in Oslo in the Munch Museum.
Uh, I've never been. I keep meaning to go.
Yeah. Well, let's go on a trip together. I was just looking at flights to Oslo earlier, actually.
It's a little bit further and more expensive to fly.
Yes, I know. But anyway, I mean, the actual painting, this one, as I said, 6 versions of this exact image. Her flame hair is so inviting, and that itself is something to think about from an art perspective, is when we encounter paintings, particularly on the wall in front of us, proximal to us in our filling our frame.
Hmm.
the invite from the artist to enter that space or that
Sure.
mind or that feeling is the thing I think that's always driven my curiosity about art. The feeling that I can approach something that is otherwise dead and inanimate, it feels so vivid. The invitation is there for me to take, that I can enter it. I don't think that's woo-woo. I think that really is,
Well, I would just say that the colors in this painting,
mm,
the contrast of colors in this painting actually makes me not uncomfortable, but like I don't like it visually.
mm,
So there's also an element of, if I was at a museum and I saw this painting, I don't know that I would stand and look at it because I find it uninviting, you know,
mm.
which might be the point. I understand. It's interesting.
Well, there's a heavy
It's like
dose.
Chagall paintings. It's just like they're very uninviting to me.
Yes, but there's a heavy dose of that idea of repelling
Sure.
as much as drawing in. I mean, when you make photographs, Bill, and you present them,
Hmm.
I would imagine that your key format now is digital and fired out into the world via Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, digital use is probably, yeah. It's very rare that I print things,
What are you
which I don't like.
inviting? What are you inviting?
Ugh. I mean, I'm inviting notice. I'm inviting attention
For yourself or for your sitter?
for myself.
Mm,
I think I'm also inviting, I would love adulation and positive responses,
sure.
But the funny thing is about like a lot of the stuff with the internet and stuff now is that I have so little control over who sees it and how and when and where because all these algorithms have taken over and incentivize or de-incentivize this, that, and the other thing. It's and that can I don't know, change the way people see it. It could change the way people react.
But do you hope that people will feel invited in?
Yeah, but I think that I think I make fairly non-aggressive work. I make the golden retriever of photographs.
Yes, maybe you do. Hmm. I mean, what would it be like to deliberately make something?
For me, that would be very hard to make something that was uninviting.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't even know how I would do it.
But because also lots of artists use this as currency, don't they? They take its opposite. They don't
Sure.
want to invite us in, yet
Yeah.
I guess that's the double edge. The repulsion is part of the attraction, as you said.
I think I think it's the same with, photographers when they're shooting portraits. I mean, there's people like me who are trying to draw the person in, and then there's other people who are essentially slapping the person across the face just to see how they react and get a picture of it,
Yeah.
either verbally or for real. The sort of honey versus vinegar kind of thing argument.
Mm.
Can you tell when somebody's negging you?
Mm. Yes, I can.
And because I think that that's also a weird thing that some people allow or almost like or get pulled towards as opposed to being pushed away from, you know?
Mm. Well, that's why I've put the Nazar. I mean, it's by an
Yeah.
artist called Didi Hadil, who I don't really know anything about apart from the fact that she is a Canadian artist working now. And this piece was on the Saatchi website. But I was looking for Nazar, just an image somehow, where I could find it. And this seemed to be the best one that summed it up. The Nazar is like it's the evil eye, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's interesting because this also looks like an eye. It looks like an egg. It looks like, by the way, I saw a young girl on the subway the other day and she had did I tell you this last time? She had
No.
a white beret on and in the right in the middle of the white beret was this yellow fluffy thing. And so when you looked at it from the top, it looked like she had an egg on top of her head. And I said, her and her father, I said, excuse me, is that an egg hat? And she's like, yes. And I was like, nice egg hat. Anyway, this reminded me of that. Um, yeah, the eye.
So the reason why I put this here and thinking about the evil eye and warding it off using amulets and so on. I mean, this symbol is all over the Near East,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's
But
everywhere.
isn't it interesting because we get drawn to eyes or even the shape of an eye or the thing just because, I mean, we're so wired to look at that, you know?
Mm.
It's almost magnetic.
Yeah, it's also something grotesque about it.
Well, sure, especially in this description.
Mm. I was reading though that Nazar usually shows pale eye, and that was because there was a fear of outsiders in villages
Right.
where I suppose most people would have brown eyes. And so the pale eye represented somebody who unknowingly or unwittingly would, invoke some kind of curse upon the
So they're
village
good.
because they wouldn't understand the custom or um so I think that seemed to be how the pale eye, the Nazar,
I'm,
originated.
I'm gonna stay away from that village.
But isn't it so that we might make an invitation
Yeah,
and then want to ward it off again? In that we might go so far and then realize we've made a mistake. And what
sure.
can we do to reverse our invitations?
Well, you could cancel an invitation, but it's pretty darn rude.
Sure, but I was this week at school actually, the pastoral topic, the PSHE topic that I've been looking at with my form group, my tutor group, who are year 9 in the UK, that means they're 14,
Hmm.
is about sexual consent
Hmm.
and what consent means. And
You can retract consent.
yes, and it's been very interesting how those young people have reacted to this revelation that consent can be retracted at any point,
Sure,
even when already having sex, for example.
sure.
That seems to be utterly surprising, shocking even
See,
to them.
that's interesting because I always think of the young people now as so hyper consent conscious, where even things that like we would not even like, is it okay if I hold your hand kind of stuff, where, people our age would just try to hold the other person's hand. Um, yeah, it's interesting to me.
Well, I think the invitation part is confusing. And I have to
Sure.
be really careful how I phrase this because that then makes it sound like there's a kind of loss of culpability in ignoring somebody not consenting. That's not what
Yeah,
I mean at all. But I think it is quite confusing when it feels as if something that was okay suddenly becomes not okay. And I'm not just talking necessarily in a sexual context, but in any context. We find it within friendship. I want to be your friend, now I don't. Sometimes it's very difficult to ascertain where did the invitation go?
sure. I wanted to talked about that after the show too. I,
Oh, right. Are my curtains? Curtains for me.
yeah, no, you're right. And what are the intentions for that invitation?
Mm.
Who are these two guys?
Well, on the left is gorgeous George, Pope Francis, as a boy.
Ah,
I have to say, I'm not religious at all, and I don't have any faith that seems to belong anywhere that I can put it.
he seemed like a nice guy though.
Well, it was been a very divisive character earlier in
Well,
his career. But
oh,
anyway,
well, sure. Yeah, the earlier stuff's a mess, but
um, but the reason why I've put him here is because I thought about what we invite into our lives when we speak ill of someone. Now, I was speaking with my dialogue group yesterday about this topic, and I listened for a little while to some of them saying some uncharitable things about somebody that they don't like. and I stopped them. Not just because I knew what was coming in our dialogue resource, which included this, but and I'll explain why in a minute. But it was also because really fundamentally, speaking ill breeds disease.
Sure.
And I really, really believe that. There's not many things I think that I could say that I absolutely believe.
It spreads too, right?
But yes, I do. I do think that this invitation that we open up to such nastiness and negativity is extremely bad for us if we are creating that badness, nastiness, rudeness, unpleasantness, bitchiness, whatever it is. And as you say, it spreads, so it's very bad for anybody who hears it. And I guess there's the old kind of see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil.
Mm.
But the reason why Pope Francis is here, apart from the fact that actually, yes, I too think that he was, as popes go, pretty marvelous pope.
I just like the stuff where he's like, I don't want all the fancy accoutrement. Just give me the normal thing in my cross. Like, I don't need the velvet nonsense and the crazy shoes and the whatever. He's just like,
Well,
that
yes,
alone gives me
perhaps it's
peace of
high
my
time
mind.
we had some popes that seem like they're
A little more
willing,
humble.
willing to be human.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyway, the Pope said, since I was a child, I have always tried to avoid those who gossip, those who speak ill of others. I have always regarded this as a grave sickness that anesthetizes the heart. And so I come back to my initial question, what do we invite into our lives? And speaking badly of another person, I think is truly wicked.
Do you think that we get back what we invite? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's as formalized or kind of schematic as saying, well, that's karma. I don't, I
Yeah.
don't know where that feeling really comes from because I do think that. I know that if I say something horrid about someone, if I have a bit of a bitch and a moan, first of all, I feel horrible myself afterwards.
Yep.
I mean, it might be delicious, the salaciousness of it might be intoxicating at the moment of delivery, but
Yep.
later it really troubles me. It makes me feel dirty, disgusting.
Yeah.
Mm, no good has ever come of speaking ill of another person, I don't think.
Mm.
I cannot think of an example where the bitchy gossip that many of us know is going on around us all the time. I cannot see how it serves us well.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I just found that because obviously there's so much at the moment available about the Pope. There's always been things available about him. He's got, autobiography that has been well quoted now, but I
You can
did,
watch the two popes on Netflix.
well, I did know about his kind of aversion to gossip
Mm.
already, and I knew about his um kind of work within the Vatican to stop backstabbing, basically.
Yeah. Well,
Much as, I said
talk
he was
about a
quite,
strangely political place. Yeah.
well, I mean, much as I said he was very divisive in his earlier career. I mean, in Argentina, he was not well liked for his decision to, I don't know, it was to do with the slums in Argentina. He didn't help or help
Yeah.
in time to popes that were not popes, priests who were incarcerated, who were
Yeah.
slum priests. And, some terrible incarceration and torture befell them. And it was, lots of people felt it was because of his ineptitude. I think I may have got that slightly wrong.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Well, this is all during the revolutions and stuff too, all the coups and military juntas. There's all that complication as well. So, I mean, listen, neither of us have ever lived in anything near that kind of situation. So,
Oh, look at you here, Mr.
well, we're
America.
not quite there yet, but we're getting there.
Well, and the other thing is to mention that, people who invite God
Mr.
in,
America, is that how you see me? Here he comes, Mr.
people,
America.
oh, Bill, do be quiet. People who invite God into their lives,
Yeah.
I think, have some other, in one way, some other issues to deal with. But also, I observed my in my own family, my aunt who passed away last year was devout, faithful, and so full of love and joy in her devotion that it, for example, it though her death was awful, um, it made her kind of journey towards that point good.
Sure.
So I was thinking about the invite that we might make to something beyond ourselves, and
Yeah.
how many of us do that with real integrity.
Sure. I
Mm.
mean, I understand the invitation of, the end.
Mm.
The inviting religion into your life, I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about all that.
So do I, but all I can speak to is as somebody who doesn't feel it myself, observing in another person who I know, trust, and love, that faith, the invitation of love from or in that faith, so profound
Yeah.
that, made me wonder about it in a way that I wouldn't wonder if someone sort of told me, if someone in a more academic context said you should believe in God because, but to actually see it lived and breathed, and to for it to have brought such compassion and comfort into my aunt's life, but also from my aunt as a true believer, the way she could behave, the way she was with others was truly compassionate.
And
And
watching her be comfortable doing it probably was made it more comfortable for you.
hmm, anyway, the last thing we're going to look at is this.
Wow.
So from
Bible
Matthew,
quote.
mm, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. And then the light within you is darkness. How great is that darkness?
Sounds threatening.
Mm.
How do you make your eyes good or bad?
Well, I think in this context, there's lots of, you can look this up, type this
Yeah, Matthew 6:2, 22 rather.
in, lots of interpretation going on with it. But the eye is the lamp of the body, it's as if we can illuminate our lives through what we take in.
Sure.
And I do think that, I think about how many of us are addicted to watching violence, for example.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking also then, in a lazy way, how often I've watched horror movies, and it seems so innocuous. But I realize more and more that I don't want to see violence.
Mm, agreed.
Um, and it seems, again, a double edge here that I know that we must see the horror of our world to act, to save it.
Yeah.
And then I contradict myself really in my thinking because it's not just that I don't want to see the massacred bodies of people in war-torn countries or the raped and humiliated remains of people who've been tortured and murdered. It's that, I know that by seeing it, I'm so profoundly affected. And I mean this in a kind of in the selfish way, which is that inside me, my body contorts, and that on all levels, it's very bad. Now, actually, I do
Do you think
think,
that accumulates too? Do you think it builds up in you like, microplastics?
yeah, I do, and that's a really good analogy, I guess. Like microplastics are building up, absolutely. But I do see the value in us seeing horror,
Mm,
like horror of our
sure. I mean,
condition.
we've discussed Don McCullen's views on all of this too, like as time went on.
Yeah.
It's it's a mixed bag, right? You know, you're also now carrying around a thing that you have no control over, which is not necessarily helping anybody. I don't know.
Sure, but then, maybe in a slightly different way, although it's the same issue, people who are addicted to watching porn or particularly violent porn,
Hmm.
how that enters almost like a soul space
Yeah, can.
and it really fucks us up.
Mm.
I guess some of us are trying to un
Deprogram.
uneducate
Yeah.
young people who, or, well, any people, but in my case, particularly young people who may have seen things that it's like as if they've been socialized into the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's all they know, right? It's like their whole world.
But anyway, the invitation again, and thinking about that word. If the eye is the lamp of the body, ought not I only to invite things of goodness? Shouldn't I be happy to receive that which is good?
Yeah. I often make people look at the camera when I'm taking pictures. Like almost 98% of my pictures have the person looking into the lens.
Yeah,
I just like people looking into the lens. And
yeah.
some people ding me about that. They're just like, you need to take more portraits where people are looking away.
Why? Because they feel confronted that the
No,
invitation.
I think that they feel like there's other options where to me, oftentimes there's just something about actually looking into somebody's eyes which gives you more than perhaps a better shift of their face. Like it gives you more information, or at least it does for me. So that's why I do it. But I don't know. I like people. I like looking into people's eyes.
Funnily enough, when you photographed me in
Mhm.
Bath, and I know we had a very short amount of time and it was all very
Mhm.
chaotic and there was COVID and la la la. But the photograph you took of me in the coffee shop where you're looking through the window,
Yep,
and
I
I've
like
got
that one.
almost like the Afghan girl stare.
Yeah, I
Like,
like that one.
well, lots of people really hate that photograph. I'm trying to work out if it's actually just that they really hate me, but I think it's that they don't like how
They don't like your look.
I really am staring. And actually, I have to say, in dialogue, in the dialogue group that I work with, I mean, they make a joke of it, but I really do stare, and I have always stared, and I'm going to say I don't mean to, but I suppose I do mean to because I really want to look at others,
Sure.
and I do really look at others, and I sometimes have to temper that with softness because it can be very not just arresting, but also confrontational and intimidating.
You have a resting stare face.
Well, I don't know what it is. I think Paddington gives a good hard stare, doesn't he?
Sure.
I think mine must be similar, but
Yeah.
the invitation is too aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, if I were taking your pictures as I did for a hot minute there, it's like I would want. By the way, that's a really nice pose. Um, but I would want to. Um, I'd want you to look in the eyes because you have really nice eyes. So it's like there's also like this whole. I don't know. There's like it's all it's complicated.
I mean, this topic to me, I'm really, each week we speak now, the topics I'm bringing, I don't know if I'm just getting old or what it is, but they've always been meaningful, but they really are getting under my skin now.
Well, but you're inviting that in because you're the one coming up with these things.
Sure. And it gives me pause to think that I've invited in so much nonsense
Over like this stuff or stuff before this.
over my life.
Oh, sure. But you know what? You were young and dumb because everyone's young and dumb.
Yeah, not always though. Now I'm old and still maybe a bit dumb.
Well,
Older and dumb.
learn a lesson, move on. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Okay, smarty pants.
I am the way.
Well, with that, Bill, it's very nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Bye.